Right. Welcome back on Mhór podcast episode. Oh my God, I'm pretty sure it's episode 8. But anyway, that is really bad for me. But we have a really special guest on today. Honestly, it's my biggest one so far. And I've had some really good guests, like some really good people. But I'm really just honoured today to be joined by Rob. Rob, man, thank you so much for coming on. And I'll just ask you, how's it going first?
Well, thank you, bro. You're saying it's an honor for you, but for me to be invited on to speak is, it's a big deal. So thank you so much. But yeah, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, good. Yeah, all good. I can't complain now. And no, look, I don't want just to be a little ass licking show, but like it really is fantastic to have someone who I would say I have a similar outlook to on. Now, look, I'm open to getting people who I would have a different outlook as well. That could be a very interesting conversation as well. But I think it's a bit underrated. People like to obviously echo chambers aren't a good thing, right? But people like to I think it's nice to have a chat sometimes with people who you might have a similar outlook to, but who knows? Maybe we'll learn something about each other over the next hour, and we'll see that we might, have things we disagree with on as well. So we'll just get going, have a great chat. You've been going quite viral recently on both TikTok mainly, but I've actually seen you a lot on Twitter as well. A lot of people are liking what you're doing over on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. You've been referred to as the political Phil Lynott, which I really love, by the way. Could you explain to the viewers some of your kind of political views, your background in politics, I suppose?
Yeah, I would say, like the whole Phil Lynott, political Phil Lynott thing is because a lot of people refer to me as like, they think I'm an immigrant. So it's it's like a play on, Phil Lynott was mixed race. So it's like, okay, this guy is actually half Irish. So that's why I kind of went with that name. But when it comes to my background in politics, I would say I kind of got like, quite red pilled back when I was about like 17 or 18, kind of around during the Repeal the 8 campaign, when they wanted to legalize murdering babies. And there was something on my conscience that like this is wrong. So I started like, looking into it. I started watching like Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder, and I just started like really getting red pilled. I was like, whoa, like all these like SJWs, this was a whole different era. And
Mm.
I was like, yo, this conservative movement makes the most sense. And I loved it. And I would like debate teachers in school, but I wasn't as, smart back then. And I wasn't very religious either. And I was really silenced as well, like in school when I would say something. I remember there was one time a teacher said, quoted like something like Donald Trump had said. This was during like his first run for president or something like that. And I said, well, is he wrong? And I quoted a statistic that I heard from Tommy Robinson, and I got thrown out of the class. And when all of those type of things started happening, I was like, I was too scared to have these type of beliefs. And that's when I kind of silenced myself then. And I was like, well, we live in a world where you're supposed to accept these things and this, that, and the third. So I became very liberalized then. I started trying to support the LGBT movement. I never supported abortion, but the LGBT movement, I was like, yeah, I don't really care, this, that, and the third. And I was hanging around with a lot of liberal people, but it just never sat right with me. And then I became a Christian, and I was like, okay, now I can openly believe in what I believe in. So yeah, I started watching like Charlie Kirk. He really got me back into conservative politics. And then there was the whole Ain 2 campaign during the general election. I started debating people and supporting Ain 2, and now we're here. Now I'm like, you know, this political Phil Lynott. So yeah.
That's incredible, man. You know what, I can relate to like a lot of what you're saying. Because like I probably was about 17, 18 when I started getting interested in politics as well. And I actually was able to study politics and society for my leaving cert. And like there was only about 6 people in that class. But there was a big range of opinions in the class. And oftentimes, and I don't think I can actually relate a lot to what you said as well about you weren't really like as smart at the time. I was definitely the same. Like I said a lot of stuff back then that I wouldn't stand over now probably. But I still was very different to everyone else in the class. And no, I can just relate to that a lot. I think that message could resonate with a lot of like young Irish men or even men anywhere. Like that kind of feeling ostracized by the establishment, and so that was very interesting. You kind of briefly touched on your Christianity there. So I just want to kind of ask, just to trade it back a little bit, as a proud Catholic Christian conservative, could you give the viewers some insight into what your faith kind of means to you?
Well, I would say I don't really say that I'm like right wing or left wing. I always say I'm Catholic. It's the gospel is the most important thing to me. If it's not in line with God, I don't believe in it. Everything I believe in is in line with Catholic social teaching. It's so important. It changed my life. And not just like politically and my views, but like just my outlook on life. There's more hope when you have faith. Um, like I was in a dark place, very secular, had like this minimalist belief in God, and someone just told me the gospel one day, and I was like, wow, this is eye-opening, and I had some sort of spiritual experience, and ever since then it's just been onwards and upwards. I was a Protestant, really low church Protestant, started studying theology, leaning towards like high church Protestantism, and then I ended up back at Rome. I was a cradle Catholic. I was born as a cradle Catholic, but it wasn't really, a big deal in my household. But yeah, I found my way back to Rome then, and it's ever since then I've just been learning and learning and learning, and it really helps you articulate yourself, especially when it comes to like political issues, because the church has so many resources on economics, social issues, morals, everything.
For sure, for sure. No, again, I can relate to that quite a lot, to be honest with you. Yeah, no, we'll definitely get back to that as the episode goes on. But you kind of mentioned there how you were formerly kind of more Protestant leaning, and then I believe it's recently you've kind of found your journey to Catholicism. Excuse me. So yeah, what could you tell like us the viewers just a little bit about your journey to Catholicism, like where what did you see in Catholicism that I suppose you hadn't seen before?
I didn't understand Catholicism. So like when I became a Protestant, like April 2023, straight away, like, I was brainwashed to believe it's demonic and, praying to statues and worshipping idols and all these false practices. And I would encounter, when I would say, oh, Catholicism is false, I would encounter, polemics and people combating me on, well, how it's not false. So when I would hear an argument, I'm not like stubborn and narrow-minded. I'm the type to test out their argument, and I would go and watch videos and read, and I'd be like, okay, I can find a rebuttal for this, I can find a rebuttal for that. But the deeper I got, I was like, okay, I actually can't defend my belief in this area. And when you start to understand Catholicism, even as a Protestant, I would defend Catholics. And I just seen a beauty in the Mass and the liturgy, and that's why I was like, okay, I'll become a Lutheran, because I really wanted to stay as a Reformed Protestant, and I love the liturgy, and I love, the fact that they take communion. I was kind of sick of going to these 8-hour-long church services where we spoke in gibberish for hours, and worshipping the men of God and the women of God that were preaching, and like, the gospel wasn't the center. But when I was about to become a Lutheran, I noticed, like, there was flaws in the arguments for Protestant beliefs, like sola scriptura, like believing that the Bible is the sole infallible authority of the church, and I think like faith alone as well. I was like, this just doesn't make sense. I heard really good arguments. I was reading church fathers, I was reading scholastics, I was reading Aquinas, and I heard just an argument one day, and I was like, I can't be Protestant anymore. I was so convicted of my beliefs. So I became a Catholic. I certainly wasn't going to become Eastern Orthodox anyways. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, like, I've had like an interesting kind of journey with my Christianity as well. Like yourself, a cradle Catholic. as I think like basically everyone in Ireland is, to be honest with you. But when you read the stuff about, like, I suppose, the history of the Catholic Church, particularly after Ireland gained, some sort of self-autonomy, independence after 1922, it definitely challenged my Catholicism for a while. And I still would stand by that there was an awful lot of wrongdoing that went on during that period. But to me, those priests or whoever it was that did the wrong, they weren't, true Catholics per se. That they were actually quite the opposite, I suppose. So that's kind of when I came back to the realization, and I still need to look more into the out and out doctrines of Catholicism, but I kind of did come back to it recently, to Rome, as you say, because it's just it's hard to describe. It's just speaking more to me as of recently, I would say. But it's interesting that you have a bit of experience in Protestantism, because like I've never, like, there is Protestant churches near me and stuff, but I've never personally been exposed to that. So even though I mean, definitely back in I know from Irish history, back in like when like big Protestant figures like the likes of Erskine Childers and Douglas Hyde died, they were Protestants, but like most of the Catholic people in the Irish government and stuff didn't go to their funerals because the Catholic Church tells them they can't go. But at the same time, despite me like very much identifying as a Catholic, I'd be very interested to like attend like Protestant masses, get a little bit of a taste for what it's like. But I'm sure there's probably some people watching this that would say that makes me like a heretic. You know what I mean? So it's a difficult one. But I just think it's interesting to be open-minded anyway. And now some people use that term open-minded very loosely, and it becomes kind of messy. But I think it's good to be open-minded, certainly when it comes to Christianity anyway. And just, you made the point about secularism there. I mean, like, in practice, secularism sounds great in the sense that, just not forcing stuff down people's throats, etc. But my fear with secularism is it's starting to almost have an opposite effect in that sense. I don't know if you saw this, but news came out today that there's going to be updates to the Irish primary school curriculum. And this is reported from like one of RT's best journalists. This isn't some fake source. That basically children in 5th class, so children as young as 9, 10, maybe 11 at an absolute push, are going to be learning about different sexual, what's the word? Sexual,
identities?
yeah, and homosexuality, essentially. I've lost the word, but it will come back to me. I think that's, and I'm seeing what's worse is I'm seeing people defend it. Like, that's quite scary. But look, I understand you've got, and I really want to get your insight into this now in a minute. But I understand that, like, the way I see it, everybody is made in the image of God, and we need to treat everyone with human rights. But it's really worrying if we're exposing young children to this level of
degeneracy.
That's the word. And it's that concept of the innocence of youth. We live in such a harsh world today. Like, there seems to be so much war, there's so much evil, so much degeneracy. So why, as Ireland, are we not trying to lead the way and protect the innocence of youth, when in reality it's quite the opposite? But I've waffled enough there. I'm gonna let you in to give your little take on that if you want.
Well, obviously the agenda of Ireland now is to destroy the Irish people, right? We've seen that wave of secularism creep in kind of pre-World War I across Europe, with Bolshevism taking over Russia. These people, globalists, they hate God, right? And I seen a great video today. A guy asked ChatGPT, if you were the devil, what would you do? And he said he would convince everybody that he's not real, and he would get everybody to turn away from Christ as much as possible. get them addicted to their phones, teach them degeneracy.
Mm.
And the whole goal of these globalists is to destroy the West, because the West is built upon Christian morals and Christian
Mm.
values. Christianity built the West,
Yeah.
and their goal is to destroy that. So how do they destroy it? They teach them these false ideologies, feminism, homosexuality, mass immigration, multiculturalism, and you have this society then where everyone has an identity crisis. Nobody knows God. People think men think they're a woman, and women think they're a man, and the population will begin to decrease. The white population will begin to decrease because people are in homosexual marriages. It's not a real marriage, but they're in these like relationships, these facades. They can't have kids. They'll tell them abortion is okay, so they'll kill their kids. Um, they'll get them to really be addicted to their careers rather than actually caring about having a family, so they won't have kids. And they'll let in mass amounts of immigrants then that are most likely like Muslim or some other false religion, and they'll take over, right? It's either secularism or another false religion, and the West will completely fall, right? So you've all the white people rampant with degeneracy, and then you have everybody else who's not even from the countries instilling their values and will completely replace the West because our population is just going to go extinct, basically. People say, oh, I'm fear mongering, and this isn't
Mm.
true. Look at the statistics. By 2050, Ireland is like the Irish people is going to be an ethnic minority if we keep going the way we're going. If we don't have Western people in Western countries that care about God anymore, what are they going to care about? They just want to fulfill the lusts of their flesh. They tell them all the time in Ireland, be who you are. That's what they love. That be who you are. You know what I mean? You have your opinion, I have mine. Just this relativism, right? And that came
Mm.
along with liberalism. Relativism is so dangerous because where is the line? It's completely arbitrary. It started off with just let us get married. Gay people just wanted to get married. Then it was, you must bake our cake. And now it's like trans and furries and abortions and just this absolute degeneracy. It's like it's ludicrous, right? But you don't see the Muslim populations participating. You don't see other foreign populations participating in this degeneracy as much as the white Europeans. And I'm not a white supremacist, as you can see. Like I'm literally half Irish. But what I'm saying is it is the West, the white people, who are majority Christian, right? Now I know there's nations in Africa that are very conservative, very Christian, and I like that. That's really good, and I don't think they'll ever turn their backs on Christianity. But who has the most modernized society, and like how much has Europe done? All on the foundation of Christianity. It's the white European people. So that's why they target us. That's why they want to brainwash our children to believe it's okay to be gay and trans and this, that, and the third, because it will end up destroying them in the long run. And they're going to be the future politicians. They're going to be the future people who are influences in society, and they're going to carry on that rhetoric as well. So yeah, the less that they know God, the better. That's their agenda.
I think it's very dangerous when we're in a situation where we might not be able to sustain ourselves as a population.
Yeah.
I totally understand that. Like we're all different. We're all made different.
Of course.
And like people have sexual urges, like etc.
Of course.
But it is a worrying situation when you look at the birth rates in the West, where it is. I think that's extremely concerning, to be honest. And I don't like personally. I don't think the solution is to like. And this is where we get into our next question: is to go back to where it was, where we essentially force people to be religion or nothing. But I suppose an ideology is only as good as how much it can sustain itself, and is constant abortions, I suppose transgenderism, and it might sound harsh, but even homosexuality and mass, I suppose, is it sustainable for a population? I have a lot. I have a lot of friends who like are have these ideologies, and I hear their concerns, like I really do, but you know, and I'm sure there are cases where there's genuinely people who are just they're just like gay, and that's just the way they are, and that's
Yeah.
but if it's to a level where we can't sustain ourselves, that's dangerous. But yeah, I think you want to come back in there, so go ahead.
Yeah, like I think society nowadays is very selfish. Nobody actually cares about the society anymore, you know? And that is the Catholic view. We are here to help each other, right? We should care about the common good. How are we going to reach it? Rather than caring about our own needs, right? Christ didn't care about himself, he cared about everybody else, right? And that's what we're lacking. And I do believe there is people who are genuinely gay,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean you should act upon your urges. As a man who is married, I could say I have the urge to cheat on my wife. Does that mean I should go and do it? A lot of these nihilists and atheists will say, yeah, it's fine. Have an open relationship. No, I should have self control to not do that, right? So just because you have the urges to act upon your homosexuality doesn't mean you should actually do it. And there's plenty of people that don't. They're celibate for the rest of their life. They join the priesthood, or they're just a parishioner, right? And that's fine. I actually commend that. I think that's amazing that you are able to control yourself from those urges. And that's what I would reflect upon in society. I think rather than forcing um a belief, we should reflect truth, right? That
Mm.
if you really love God, you should put these feelings to the side and rely on his grace to to like be able to resist these urges. We all have urges, but society now has said it's fine, act upon those urges, you know what I mean? And I'm just wondering, where's the line? What is next? You know what I mean? People will say, I've said, like, what is next? Is bestiality going to be okay? And they're like, oh, that's ridiculous. But 20 years ago, if I said, oh, is a man going to become a woman? Oh, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? So I just don't know where this is going to go. I really don't. And when I know what the agenda is, it wouldn't surprise me if in 10, 20 years, it's completely fine to do that. So, yeah.
That's really fair. Yeah, and I might just ask, because I want to make sure I'm playing kind of devil's advocate here, and that I'm sticking up for people who are like shouting at the screen and disagreeing with you, right? What would you say to those who are kind of like, I could choose to resist my urges, my, I suppose, lustful urges. I could choose to go celibate, or I could choose to just marry a woman anyway, or whatever.
Yeah.
But then that would just lead me to a life of misery where I would potentially like commit really heinous crimes or whatever. What would be your response?
Whoa, commit heinous crimes? I think that's like a false hypothetical. Well, it's not a false hypothetical, but it's like, what do you mean you're going to commit heinous crimes? I think it's more than just homosexuality at that point. You have mental health issues, but like, we are called to share in the suffering of Christ. You know, if you say you love God and you're a Christian, you should have to, resist certain things that you want to do if you say you love God. Say, well, I don't believe in God. I'm an atheist. Well, I don't really care, and if the majority of our society says different, and as a society we come together and vote that that stuff should be, penalized and, probably against the law, well, you're going to have to resist them then. And if you want to break the law, well, then you'll have to face the justice system for that. So,
That's a fair answer. No, that you've stuck by your guns. That's totally fair enough. Yeah.
And
No,
sorry, I just want to say one thing. I
sure.
have compassion for these people, right?
Yeah.
I really do. I have compassion for these people because, as you said, it's an urge. Like they instinctively feel it. So we're not tossing you to the side. We are
Mm.
all in this together. We are in a spiritual warfare. Whether you're an atheist or not, we are combating against the devil, and that is the weapon he has formed against you to try and destroy you. And when you recognize that, it really opens your eyes. Like, wow, he's just trying to ruin me. That there's more to life than fulfilling your sexual urges and having this identity crisis. You are more than your urges. So
Yeah, I totally hear you, and I suppose, to me, like, and I don't want to be sort of stereotypical here, but the ideal, um, Western like life, I suppose, is to get married young and be God fearing and like have like as many kids as possible, and I think when we see the rates of depression and mental health issues, anxiety in today's society, as we've kind of gone away from those traditional family values, I think it's showing to be dangerous,
Yeah.
But I suppose I'm just the only reason I'm like I suppose many people probably think I'm not pushing back enough, but like the only reason I'm like slightly pushing back to is because I know there are people who will be like, just like to be honest, Rob, and like I'm not having a go at you myself here because I'm not a million miles away from myself, but there is probably people who would be like offended by what you've said. But I appreciate that you're just here to speak your truth, and that's cool, like so
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
kind of past the whole polite politics at this point. I
Okay.
think we're in a danger zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just past that. I feel like we just need to be bold the way they were bold back during the whole politically correct era. People are
Mm.
starting to wake up. So the louder you are, the better. You know what I mean? And I don't hate anybody. I don't discriminate against anybody. It's my
Hmm.
opinion, and all opinions are my own. To clarify, but yeah, I just like that's Paul was like this, you know. During the time of Christ, Paul was bold and loud, and they stoned him in the street. Come and stone me. You know what I mean? I don't really care. I will die upon this hill. I will die.
Well, that's an incredible quote right there, because I think as Christians we are commanded to die for Christ if we have to. So that's look, I think even your biggest enemy would have to respect you for saying that. But we'll just move off a slight bit anyway, kind of sticking to the theme of religion, but kind of bringing it back on a political level. In your opinion, do you believe church and state should be separate?
I'm pretty sure it's Catholic teaching that we shouldn't. Now, I could be wrong
Right.
on that, so I don't want to like stick to my guns and be a heretic. But
Yeah.
do I believe that? I believe there's a idealistic society where we can have a state that is submitted onto the church. So like we have a leader, let's say like a king, who's submitted onto the Catholic Church. So there would be they can handle state affairs amongst their own, which is fine, and it's in line with Catholic teaching. But yeah, so they're submitted onto the church. I think that would be great. But ideally, I would love that there shouldn't be. That it's like the church is completely in control. But I don't think that's really uh I don't think it's possible.
Mm.
Like how is the Roman pontiff supposed to keep his eye on every single state? You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Sure.
yeah.
No, that's a really solid answer, 100%. So sounds like you're more of a Gael Riot man than a Gael Start man, and what that essentially means, Gael Riot would be like a Gaelic kingdom, like having like a king rather than like the president system we currently have. So that's really interesting. There is interesting stuff going on online that some people are arguing for, a Gael Riot, a Gaelic kingdom, which we actually, if you look at Irish history, we actually used to have before, I
Yeah.
suppose, British rule. So a lot of people associate kingdoms with like the British, like, but Brian Boru is probably one of the most famous warriors in Irish history, and he was a king. So that's yeah, that's a really interesting perspective, I think, as well. But look, I've gone like back nearly 900, 1,000 years there. So to bring it back to 2025, um, in your opinion, where are the Irish government? Because it's clear you're not a fan of the Irish government, right? I think everyone knows that. Um, uh, in your opinion, where are they currently failing in their duties to the people?
I really think they just don't care about the Irish people. It's not Ireland first. It's everybody else first. It's whatever the European Union tells them to do. It's mass immigration first. Where I really think they're failing is, we have a mass housing crisis, but yet they'll import 150,000 immigrants. Our population is growing exponentially. yet we have nowhere for people to live. They do this on purpose because it increases the demand for housing, right? So landlords can basically charge whatever they want, and all that money then that the landlords are charging and making is going to the government in taxes, and that's all they care about. They just care about money. It's just pure greed. They hate God, they hate Ireland, and the more they have the people divided amongst themselves, I think the more support they'll get, right? Because there's such a small minority of people that are really nationalist, and they're just all viewed as racist. So then more people will vote for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and Sinn Féin and these shills, and they'll keep running their psyops and everything to brainwash the people. They're failing the people in the fact that we have a lot of white Irish people that have no skills whatsoever. They rely upon the dole, and there's no incentives for them to become higher achievers. And that's just anecdotal. Like I look amongst these young guys in their Monterey and Monterex tracksuits, and you could ask them, "What are you going to do after school?" "Man, I'm going to the dole," or like they'll probably do like some sort of like trade or apprenticeship and just leave it there. You know what I mean? They're happy where they are. Whereas where my mother, I was raised in a council estate, right? But my mother really pushed me to be a high achiever. She was like, I just want you to do well. And she pushed me and pushed me and pushed me. And, thank God I was quite successful. I'm successful in my career and in my studies and everything. But there's not enough of that. And it's like these like generations of people that are basically degenerates. If your parents are on the dole and they don't care, I'm not saying everybody on the dole, but if your parents are on the dole and they don't care, you're going to follow in suit. That is their role models. That is the people that raised them. So why is there no change? Why is there no changes for those people in these low socioeconomic areas? No movements to push them to do better in school, to attend school in the first place. That's definitely one thing I think needs to be worked upon, because they're saying, oh, we need doctors and engineers, and they'll bring in these mass amounts of immigrants. Why aren't we making our own doctors and engineers? You know what I mean? Why is the people who are high achievers then moving to Australia? Because we have to pay extortionate taxes and we get absolutely nothing out of it. I took public transport for years. The trains are always delayed. The buses are crap. The roads are crap. I'm getting paid a good wage, but then I'm paying like 40% or 45% in tax. And I can barely live. And I have a good job. So I can't even imagine if someone only has like a mid-paying job or a low-paying job. What's the incentive for us to even stay here? There's nothing. So
Mm.
yeah, I just feel like they don't care whatsoever, and they'll keep pushing, like social issues so they can get voted in again. Like, yeah, we're gonna legalize abortion and weed, and everyone's gonna be happy, and we're gonna all hold hands and say the Our Father together. No, like you guys need to be put in jail. So
But yeah, I mean, it seems, I suppose, the Irish government and many Western governments as well have adopted this strategy of neoliberalism, where it's essentially kind of abandoned the what I was sort of speaking about earlier, the traditional nuclear family model, for I suppose, for worshipping other earthly things, such
yeah,
as you know, I'll be able to go on holidays twice a year, or I'll be able to go to that concert. Now, look, I'm not trying to deprive people of going on holidays or a concert. Like, if you want to do that, have your fun, work away. But I would argue, and I would really make the case, with all the respect in the world, that there is bigger things, in life. But the thing is, though, you'd say something if like it was a case of, if someone like you or me, more conservative minded, who wants to have, a family, if we had the option to go out there and, like, just on a good wage do that, you'd say fine, and let people who want to do the opposite off. But it's almost come to a stage where it's almost like the only option is just to nearly waste your life away
yeah,
and go out and party at the weekend, and just go to maybe you might have the odd concert here or there, or holiday, because, like, you actually you actually can't afford to, you know have this family centered life that many people desire. And look, like, I'm sure there's going to be people rebuting us. Like there's going to say, oh, there still is young people having kids, and it's still happening. Like, but you know, I don't think I know of many families like you said who are restrained by this issue. You know, so and I suppose all that comes down to the housing crisis at the end of the day. You know, I am currently a student, University College Cork, and like I'm commuting every day from college, and we did look into accommodation over the summer, but it's just the prices are like they're absolutely mental. Like it wouldn't actually make sense to live up there unless you're like more than 2 hours away or something. You just couldn't justify buying it otherwise. And there's a lot of factors that play into the housing crisis. It's liberalism as we talked about. It's greedy landlords. It's many things that, in fairness to the left wing in this country, they do talk about. But here's one thing that the left wing are afraid to talk about because they don't want to be seen as racist or whatever. So my question to you is, in your opinion, is immigration linked to the housing crisis? Now, I think you kind of discussed it earlier, but I'll just let you go again if you want there.
Yeah, as I said already, it's like they'll bring in these mass amounts of people to bring up the demand for housing, and as I said, the landlords will increase the price, and then they'll even house immigrants in like hotels and stuff, and all that money is just going back to the government once again. You know what I mean? And I really do think it also leads to a mass amount of depression amongst the population, which then in turn leads to consumerism, right?
Mm.
These people who can't get housing that want to start their life will distract themselves with the concerts, with the going out on the weekends, with the drinks, with the drugs, with the eating food, just anything to get a buzz, because the fulfillment is in having a family and starting your life, starting your career. And they don't see the beauty in that anymore because they're completely blinded by consumerism. And it's all linked to immigration, right? I'm not blaming immigrants. People will call me racist, which I think is like retarded. But I'm not blaming immigrants. I don't think people realize that the immigrants are being used as a weapon against the Irish people. Because I'm a civic nationalist, so I believe that there can be immigration. Now, not as much as what we're having now, but people can come to this country and can conform to the national identity and be integrated into society, but we're not seeing that, right? And, I seen a video of I used to live in Drogheda, up in County Louth, and there was all brand new houses built, right, by this foreign contractor. I don't know where they're coming from. I think it's like Qatar. A lot of them are coming from where they will contract out to build all these houses because they have the money to do it. People can't even build their own house anymore. And then it was like just all Indian or Pakistani, like South Asia? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's South Asia. South Asians buying the houses on the spot. Irish people can't get to the point where they can buy a house anymore, especially the ones who have lived their life on the dole. You know what I mean? Because there was no incentive or push to be like, yeah, start saving for your deposit to buy a house. And it's like, so the Irish people can't get a house? You know what I mean? And I know there's like certain quotas and stuff in each of these estates that they are council houses. But a lot of time it's not even Irish people getting it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, and that's the thing. I want to really clarify I'm not blaming immigrants. I know there's an issue amongst immigrant population with crime. We can talk about that later. But, yeah, that's the deal with the Irish government and immigration.
Yes, yeah, I think, yeah. So look, you've told us from the start you're mixed race. You've described yourself as half Irish. Like, how important is it, in your opinion, to draw the line between legitimate immigration concerns, which we've just kind of outlined, and like downright racism? Because I believe you've been, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just kind of from me following you over on TikTok and stuff like this. You've been probably victim, if maybe that's not the right word, but probably victim to quite a bit of racism, you could argue. So yeah, I just want to ask, like, in your opinion, like, just how important is it to draw that line from legitimate immigration concerns to just like racism, basically?
Yeah, I think there's a mass movement of like ethno-nationalism spreading across Europe. And I think it's just like a lack of education. It's a lot of low IQ retardation, basically. These guys who do have concerns, but
Yeah,
they're listening to the wrong people. They're channeling their anger and resentment in the wrong way. And a lot of them will LARP as Catholics as well. They'd be like, "Yeah, I'm Catholic," but you're like
mm,
not sticking to social teaching, and
no,
it's like it just looks cool to say you're Catholic nowadays.
yeah,
And to be honest, you guys, if you stick with that, you're gonna end up in hell. But yeah, it's like the line is that we can have an issue with immigration, we can have an issue with immigrants that come in and cause trouble, but it's like that doesn't mean you discriminate people and think that they're less than, right?
yeah,
I think it's a Dignitas Humanae that talks about the dignity of all human beings, that we are made in the image of God. And if you don't stick to that, then you're just a racist, right? That you hate brown people. And it's ridiculous. We have to draw the line at like, you can't discriminate people. You can't think they're less than. You can't abuse them on the street. And that's the like most popular way to deal with it. That is not going to make changes as well. That's what I really need to drill in for people. You will not get a support base, especially a majority support base, that's going to be able to change government and get into government if you continue with this. It's low IQ, it's degeneracy. You look like an idiot, right? If you want actual change, we need to first of all be sophisticated in society, have dignity for all human beings, be Christ-like, be the influences in society. You going around on your e-scooter screaming at brown people that you hate them. How about you go and get a job? How about you go and actually start a business? How about you become a politician or a doctor or a professor that people will listen to, right? Because people with an actual high IQ won't listen to you, right? And I understand their concerns and we can share viewpoints, right? But to be honest, if I spoke to them, they're not going to listen to me. And I see it in my comments. They go, "You're brown." I'm like, "You're a right?" And yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know how, like, that's basically what the UK has become now, is like these low IQ degenerates. And if they have a problem with me, I don't really care. They already don't like me because I'm Brian. But then you've ones here in Ireland now as well that are gaining a lot of traction, and they just say stupid stuff, say they're Catholic, and I don't think they should be given communion on a Sunday to be ostracized from the mass. You are not a part of the body of Christ if you behave that way. So
I completely agree with you. I really do. I've been quite like vocal on, I suppose, Twitter in denouncing ethno-nationalism as well. Um, and I've actually like got a lot of like abuse for it as a result, which I'm fully prepared to take. Like,
yeah,
if you're not, to be honest, if you're not getting abuse at some level, you're probably doing something wrong, and I think you know that better than anybody. So but yeah, I basically made the point that all you kind of spoke about there, how like brown people or whatever being beaten on the street. To me, and I put this on a tweet, all that achieves is it actually makes the attacked person less loyal to the nation, and that's
yeah,
going to make them more likely to commit a crime or to denounce Ireland or to So you're right; it's a really low IQ thing to do. I apologize if anyone is offended by the use of the word. But low IQ is definitely how I would describe it. I don't think anybody should be offended by that. Um, I completely agree. Because I mean we talked about Phil Lynott earlier, Um, like some of the most like there's again going back to Irish history and all that, and I know I've waffled a lot about Irish history in this podcast, so I'm probably making you go to sleep and the viewers go to sleep. But like like if you look at like the Normans, for example, well maybe not the Normans, but yeah, I'm pretty sure, yeah, basically like old Vikings when they came into Ireland. Unlike, I suppose, the British and stuff like that, they actually became more Irish than the Irish themselves. Now, I'm
yeah,
not saying this is the case for everyone at all. Okay, I've definitely seen immigrants come in and be quite hostile to the nation actually. But
yeah,
if you're willing to come in and be sincerely, um, like loyal to the nation, to the Gaelic tradition, to, and ideally Christ-like as well, you know, ideally, then I really don't see what problem people are having. And again, this could get me a bit of abuse, but you're talking about these people who are, you know, on the dole, not have a job or whatever. And look, I have a certain amount of empathy for them because,
Yeah.
like we've talked about the economic neoliberal system, etc. But I will take like a hardworking, loyal person who actually loves Ireland, you know, maybe speaks the language, plays GA, over like one of these wasters who just shouts from their ma's bedroom any day. You know, I really will. And again, I could face some abuse for that, but that's not to turn my back on the fella in his ma's bedroom. I'm actually appealing to him to kind of wake up and see that these new people could actually be an asset to us. You know, a lot of immigrants, and you're not an immigrant, you were born here, but you know, you're mixed race, actually can be great assets to the Irish nation, because you know, you're God fear a lot now. Not everyone. Some of them are Muslim or whatever, and I mean no disrespect to Muslim people, but you know, but God fearing people who are actually interested in contributing to this nation can be a real asset to Ireland, and I fully believe that. But obviously, we need to make a distinction between then the kind of false immigrants. But yeah, that's absolutely it. So no, I think you spoke really well there, to be honest with you, and I think that topic is actually pretty well covered now, to be fair.
I just want to say like two things. First of all, about like this, like, you know, as I said, I was given out about those like low IQ people. We are appealing to you right here, right now, that we actually care about you. Like, we are in the same movement as you. We want Ireland saved. But what I'm saying is your behavior is not going to help the movement, because if you are committing crimes against immigrants, first of all, you are empowering the enemy, right? The agenda that's working against you. You're empowering them, right? And secondly, if you believe in law and order, and you're saying law and order needs to come to this country against immigrants, it needs to be the same against you, right? We need law and order. And secondly, where I would say this, like, this racist rhetoric is coming from, is like like this relative race realism amongst like pagan ethno-nationalist groups. They don't believe in God. They're okay with degeneracy. They just want a white only country. They don't care by any means necessary. They will use violence. They will use anything, right? Extermination. So if you don't want to believe in the left and their rhetoric and their godless rhetoric, don't believe in the race realists and their godless rhetoric, right? Because they're okay with pornography. They're okay with OnlyFans girls. They're okay with trans and gays. As long as it's white, they don't care. So it's just as bad. And the last thing I'll say is about the word retard. I apologize if I've offended anybody. It's just an Irish thing, really, to say, oh man, yeah. Just wanted to clarify.
That's very true. No, sorry, I wasn't trying to be like the teacher giving out to you, but it's just it's more that I'm obligated to say these things just in case anyone's offended. But no, I knew you didn't mean any harm by it 100%, so there's no worries there. But I just wanted to briefly say, and we'll move on to the next topic then, and we'll round it off shortly after that. But I think what if people who are shouting at us, abusing us in the comments, if you can take one thing from this, and even if you're not a Christian, but it's the Imago Dei, the image of God, where if that was followed throughout history, you know, everyone is made equally in the image of God, a lot of atrocities could have been avoided, you know. So and that's why, like, you know, we were having maybe a little bit of a debate earlier about like your views on homosexuality, and some people would say they're very extreme, but I think you still understand that like these people are still human, and they need to be treated as such, you know. So look, we'll move off that kind of race topic, but I think it's extremely fascinating, because I've held these beliefs for a long time, that it's pure nonsense with these, like, I suppose, white supremacists are coming out with. But I've never actually got a chance to sit down with a mixed race person and see it from their perspective. So I really appreciate, appreciate you having that conversation with me, I suppose. So yeah, to move on anyway, we're into the last hall of the pod, but unfortunately, because I'd love to talk to you all day, to be honest. But what would you like to inspire the people of Ireland to ultimately do? Like, just full free reign. I'm not gonna interrupt you at all. What would you like to what would your message to the people of Ireland be, I suppose, for however many watch this?
Turn to Christ. I really do think it all starts with Jesus Christ, and the passion and how he died on the cross for you. I think when you truly understand the passion and why Christ gave his life for you, it will just change everything. And you will be inspired then to carry out the virtues of the faith, hope, charity, love, and peace. And you'll care more about your society then. You'll care about other people. That's really, I think, the main message of it all, is that our world is falling apart around us and our only hope is in God. If you idolize anything else, yourself, the nation, even if you're a nationalist and you idolize the nation, you're lost. You will not be fulfilled, because what are you going to do when the nation is turned around and changed, or it ends up being this utopia that you do want? What are you going to do then?
Wow.
You know what I mean? But with Christ and attending the Mass every Sunday and receiving him on the tongue, and you're meeting him at the gates of heaven, until the day that you die, and then for infinity when you die, and you get to, be in the presence of God, everything will change. You know what I mean? I think, yeah, that's the main message, and when I recognized how much God loved me and that he wants me to live a good life and be good to people, like people, will say, oh, you're a prick and this, that, and the third. I genuinely actually love everybody. The left will pretend to love everybody and be tolerant of everybody, but they just care about money. They just care about, fulfilling their own personal pleasures. I genuinely care about everybody, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're a racist, whether you're trans, gay, whatever. I care about you and I want the best for you. And I just want that truth to be reflected onto everybody, that the arms of Christ is open at any time and he's there to embrace you.
That is Shin Gahal and Akara. That's absolutely beautiful, Akara. My friend as well, Akara. I'm so used to saying Akara that I just assume English at this stage. But that's really lovely. Honest to God. Like, it's something I need to work on, is because I do have a sincere faith and just love and admiration for Christ. But it's something I need to work on, is expressing it with people more and not being afraid to express it, because he saved my life. It's that simple. It's actually that simple. And I don't want to get too deep. There's people probably watching this in my close in my personal life who knows how dark it got for me at times in the not so far away past. And I came back to Christ, and I honestly haven't looked back, and I truly get back to Christ. Some people say, like, I follow Christ, and it's like, but it's not really sincere. It's more of like, it's more a case of, I suppose, they're afraid they're going to go to hell, and they say, oh, the Christian thing might work. But I actually was serious about it, and I haven't looked back since. Not saying that's going to be the same for everybody, but I really couldn't encourage more people to turn to that path. So yeah, no, that's like Aber Lum Arish Shin Gahal and Akara. I'll say it again. That's lovely, my friend. Really lovely. But it's beyond lovely. Actually, lovely is the wrong word. It's the truth. It is the only way out. And I think people can have their different beliefs and all this, but they're I think we both know that they're in denial. But look, that's up to them, I suppose, and individual liberty, etc., and so on and so forth. Like, that's wow, that was deep stuff. But anyway, as I want to take it back to, unfortunately, earthly things again. but it is an important part of your brand. So I think it's right that we ask it. As someone with a significant social media following and presence, like you've got, I think, over 30,000 followers on TikTok now. Where do you see yourself going with that in the future? And what would your advice be for like aspiring creators such as myself, to be quite honest?
Um, I'm in this game a long time. And I've chopped and changed and chopped and changed for a long time. But I think I've finally found where I really want to be, and I really want to do content. Like, I would much rather do content than actually work a job, like a 9 to 5. Um, and I really want to have my own like talk show. I want the studio set up, and I want to speak the truth. I want to learn more from other people, and I want to inspire young Irish men to become radical in their beliefs, following Christ and caring about the nation, becoming patriots and changing the society. I think that's what I should be doing with my platform. You know, what I used to do was just promoting degeneracy and like, cheap comedy and clout chasing. But it's like now that I'm actually living life and working and like, owning a home and this, that, and the third and starting a family, it's you start to see the effects on your actual day-to-day life of what's going on. And I'm like, we need things to change. So I'm going to speak out, spread the truth, so other people, before they get into my situation, can start planning and working towards, okay, I'm going to actually get into politics. I'm going to be a member of society that can make change and do the same thing as me. You know what I mean? Just advocating for change. So yeah, and then with the other aspiring creators, what I would say is, first of all, don't be afraid. Like, just do it. If you don't even have the best setup in the world, if you are speaking facts, people are going to listen. And it shouldn't matter about the money. It shouldn't matter about anything else other than spreading the truth. Just go ahead and do it. You know what I mean? Turn on the camera, say what you have to say, and you'll learn as you go along. You'll gain a following. If you don't upload videos, a lot of people will make videos and keep them in the woodworks. It's like no one's watching them then. You know what I mean? A shot not taken is a shot missed. So just start uploading. See what happens. Improve and improve and improve. And yeah, you'll get to, like, my position. What? I only have 30,000 followers. That's nothing in comparison to some other people. But they all had to start somewhere. So yeah, just get to it.
Praise God, bro. Praise God.
Amen.
That's incredible advice. Definitely taking a few notes there myself. And no, fair play to you. Rob, I think that probably brings us to the end. But look, it's been an absolutely incredible chat. Really insightful. I'm sure it's going to stir up a bit of drama, I'm feeling, but I'm okay with that.
I'm good, bro.
And honestly, thank you. I'd love to, have chats in the future. We could, I could speak to you all day, honestly. So, thank you so much for coming on. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the viewers as we finish?
Well, thank you so much for watching, and thank you, John, for bringing me on. Check out my other social media platforms, my TikTok, my YouTube. I'm really working on my YouTube right now. And follow Jesus Christ. Trust in the gospel, the message of the gospel, and be a patriot of this country. Thomas Aquinas actually said that patriotism is meritorious, meaning that it's a good thing that you can receive grace for. So, yeah, stand up for what is right. If you have these beliefs and you're afraid to speak out, you're complicit then in the destruction and the chaos that's occurring around us. Don't be afraid to speak out. It's time to speak up now. You know what I mean? I know so many people that are afraid to talk and they're like, yeah, I believe that, but everyone each to their own. No, it's time now to start speaking up and making change. So if you're watching and you have those beliefs, get to work. And if you're watching and you're like, yo, this guy is a lunatic, keep watching me. Debate me if you want. Have conversations with me. Because open dialogue and debate is the way to go forward. We don't need to have identity politics. And I'm not listening to him because he has those beliefs. You'll never learn. That's ignorance, and you're just
Absolutely.
being stubborn. So, yeah, that's my message.
Charlie Kirk died recently. May the Lord have mercy on his soul. And
Amen.
he, whether you loved or hated him, whether you, think he was right or wrong, he, and different things, because loads of different things he had opinions on, obviously. But he was an advocate for true free speech and, for dialogue between people. And I think that is important now more than ever. That's the way we kind of go forward. It's about education. It's about bringing people onto the side of the truth. It's that simple.
Yeah, definitely. Amen.
On that note, we'll end it there. Thanks very much for listening to the Mhór podcast. Hope to get more episodes out as soon as we possibly can. And please follow Rob, as he said, on YouTube, on Instagram and TikTok. It's just R.O.B, and you should find him fairly easily. He's hard to miss. Thanks a million, Rob, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Take care.